We have him on with us, and that's Clark Barrington, BYU team captain. I guess I should say former BYU team captain. We're going to talk about why he decided to go in the transfer portal and what is his plan going forward, all ahead on today's edition of Locked On Cougars.
You are Locked On Cougars, your daily podcast on the BYU Cougars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody? I'm Jake Hatch, your host here on Locked On Cougars, your resident BYU insider. Thank you for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. As always, please be part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where, of course, the motto is your team every day. And as such, we are your only daily podcast focused on the BYU Cougars. Got a special guest back on the show. I thought we might be done talking to him, but he decided to do something that made literally national headlines, and that is going to the transfer portal. So Clark Barrington joins us now, a former member of the BYU football program. It's very weird to say, Clark, I'm not going to lie, but thanks for taking the time. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Okay, so as I said, former member of the BYU football program. You stirred the interwebs, I guess the easiest way to say it, Monday evening by putting your name in the NCAA transfer portal. So I'm going to lob a softball at you right off the top. Why transfer portal? Why not the NFL?
Yeah, at this time of year, it's kind of just collecting all the information I can. Like we've talked about kind of in before or in previous podcasts, just trying to get information from scouts, from agents, from coaches, from, literally everybody that I could possibly reach out to. And, to be completely honest, with some of the injuries and things I had in the past, I wasn't playing at my at the level I know I can play at, especially at the beginning of the season. And it showed on the field and in my stats and things like that. And so, it kind of hurt me as far as, my projections and things like that. And so I think that I know that I can improve. I know that I have a healthy off season and, getting stronger and focusing on the things I need to focus on, that I can come back and play at a high level, and that'll hopefully in turn help me improve my stock, hopefully coming out next year. So
now, I always assumed that after the season, and you and I have talked a lot this year, but this was, I never asked you this directly, but I always assumed that you were moving on from BYU after the season. I always assumed that you were headed to the NFL. That was my assumption. Now, you decided to go in the transfer portal. You mentioned the fact that some of the previous injuries, you've had shoulder surgery, I believe, is it 3 times in your career so far on your shoulders?
Just twice, one on each shoulder.
Okay, so you had one on each shoulder. Anybody who watched the New Mexico Bowl saw that you have your shoulder harnesses on your arms to keep those from recurring. But I didn't notice that. I don't know if is that the first game you've been playing with an elbow brace all of a sudden?
No, that's been a couple games now. But
okay. So I guess I missed that in the previous game. So elbow brace goes on. So you just want to get back to the level you were playing at. Because I think a lot of people saw the offensive line in many respects this year. They felt like it dipped a little bit in terms of its overall production. I guess I'm going to lob that question at you. Do you feel like the offensive line lived up to its expectations this year?
I think for sure there were parts where we didn't live up to expectations. There were definitely things we could do better. But I think there were phases throughout kind of the whole game that could have improved to help everybody look a little bit better. So,
all right. So as you move forward here, obviously you've gone in the portal. So we're recording this, I guess, in the interest of full disclosure, on Tuesday night. So you've essentially been in the portal officially for 24 hours now. Can you give us
almost.
Yeah, so give us some insight as to how crazy that initial 24 hours has been or so.
Yeah, it's wild for sure. Everybody comes out of the woodwork and and there's, of course, there's negative things being said. There's positive things being said. There's fan bases throughout the entire country, tweeting at their coaches or whatnot, saying, "Hey, we need this guy. Check this guy out," or stuff like that. And then there's tons of coaches and schools that have reached out to me, and so it's kind of an interesting dynamic, I guess. And it's still trying to figure out how to process everything and go about this whole transfer portal thing, but we'll figure it out here soon. So
now, I had a conversation with somebody else who went in the portal. This is not connected to you necessarily, but what I was told is I think we've talked about this on the podcast previously, is that in transfer portal with recruiting, a lot of times coaches are texting you saying, "Hi, I'm Coach so-and-so from insert university name here. We're interested in you as a player. Are you interested in us?" And it's like essentially check yes or no. And if you say yes, the conversation continues. If it's no, hey, thanks for your time. We're moving on.
Yeah. That's honestly, there's some pretty extravagant little, what would I say, like recruiting messages that some of these coaches throw out there. Some of them are pretty wild, but most of them are exactly what you said. Are you interested? Yes or no? Okay, cool. Let's not waste either of our times if you're not, and if you are, then let's continue this relationship. So.
Well, very cool. Okay, so you're a guy relative to a lot of other athletes in this transfer portal who is a proven commodity. I saw it came out. You played in 46 career games now. You've started 40 games in your career at BYU. You can correct me if I'm wrong. I believe you've given up only 2 sacks in those 40-plus games played and or started for BYU. So in terms of proven production, you're right there near the tops of what a team or a program could aspire to attract. So my question for you then, Clark, is what are you looking for in whatever program you go to next?
Yeah. I feel like, kind of the story that's being told with everybody is, oh, there's money to be had, elsewhere or whatnot.
NIL, baby.
And I feel like, that can play a piece in what's important, but really right now where I'm at, it's not so much about that type of stuff, and it's more about just getting with the right people and with the right coaches that I know that I can continually improve, continually progress my game, and continually get better. And so that's the big thing I'm looking for, is just somewhere I can go and improve my game. So
now that it leads to an inevitable question I know every listener and or viewer of this podcast is going to have in their mind. Clark, has Baylor reached out? Have you had communication with Jeff Grimes and or Eric Mateos?
Yeah, absolutely. They've reached out. So it's definitely an option.
Okay. I was going to say, well, are they, they've offered you that? I guess that's the long and short of it.
Yep.
Okay. I want to talk more about your time at BYU, how things have gone, that type of stuff. We'll get to that here in just a moment. First, though, need to get a word in on our friends over at BetOnline. Of course, have been a longtime partner of ours here on Locked On Cougars and the Locked On Podcast Network. They are your number one source for all of your sports betting information, stats, news, and analysis. You can get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there. Clark, by the way, they probably should do this with BetOnline. It seems foolhardy in many ways, but they probably should put odds on like transfer portal, like targets, like guys like you go in, Baylor is a 5-1 favorite to land, that type of stuff. I think would be absolutely hilarious. I don't think that's going to happen, but it's just a suggestion out there for our friends at BetOnline. All right. So regardless, if you're interested in pro football, college bowl season, basketball, baseball coming up in a few months, they've got it all at BetOnline. And if you love sports podcasts like this one, you can find those on BetOnline as well. They are the fastest and the easiest way to get your sports betting information. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more now. That's BetOnline, where the game starts. Thank you for joining us here on Locked On Cougars with Clark Barrington. Make sure you check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast. It is has the biggest stories from around the sports world in 20 minutes or less. It's got instant reactions to every game that's big, game recaps, and of course, Locked On's take of the day. That's Locked On Sports Today, available on this app, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcast. All right, continuing on here with Clark Barrington. And Clark, I wanted to throw a question at you, and it's one that I think a lot of people on social media, I'm sure it's been lobbed at you. What was your relationship with Coach Funk like, and was that a reason for you to leave BYU?
Yeah, I feel like I had a great relationship with Coach Funk. I was able to learn, from him and gain knowledge of the game from him, and I would say none of the coaches are really a reason as to why I'm leaving. I feel like I don't know if this will make sense a whole lot, but this is kind of how I've made sense in my mind. I feel like I've gotten almost too comfortable
Okay.
in my circumstance, and I'm a big believer in that not necessarily trials, but like hard things in life, changes, those types of things. That's what builds you to become something great. And so through my whole career, I've had coaching changes and whatnot, and so what's another one, I guess. But I'm just excited for the opportunity to kind of go somewhere new, start over again, have to kind of relearn things, get to know and meet new people, play with new people, and just continue to grow and develop through that process. I do cherish the relationships I have with the players, and they're for sure gonna be brothers for life, and I love each and every one of those guys, and I had a great talk with Coach Kalani, and I know that he loves me, he wants the best for me, and I love that guy, and I want the best for him, and we had a good talk, and everything ended with lots of love and appreciation for both him for me and me for him. And so it was a hard goodbye, but in the end I felt like that's what was best for me. So
you want to get comfortable with being uncomfortable, it sounds like. You want to be pushed and kind of have to grow again and prove yourself all over again, it sounds like.
Yeah, kind of. I know it's kind of sounds weird, but most of the time when you've earned a spot and you've kind of gotten that role, it has been great, being able to start and have that role and, be a captain, be a leader and all that. But I think it's kind of time for change. So.
All right. So you talk about change and wanting that change in your life and going in, developing your skills, getting you said with the right people, hopefully help you stretch and grow. There would be people, and I'm interested in this as well. Was there any thought to you just trying to do that at BYU for another year?
For sure. That's kind of what took me so long to process and pray and figure out what I was going to do. There were three options: stay, go to the NFL, or transfer. And it really wasn't ever clear to me until, after kind of the bowl game. I just felt like this was what was best for me and for my wife and our family and doing that. And so, the whole season and during the bowl game prep and everything, I just tried my best to be in the moment. Of course I was, praying, contemplating about these things, but trying to be in the moment for not only myself, but for the coaches, for my brothers around me that were playing. And that was the big thing for me, was just to, do my due diligence and pay respect to everything BYU's given me. And I felt like the best way for me to do that was to finish the season, play the best I could to my best abilities and finish the season and go and win a bowl game and just, have fun with the boys while I could. So.
Sure, I can respect that. I've got very, I guess, sound weird, but I got mad respect for both of you and Blake. I am fully anticipating Blake moving on to the NFL. I'm not going to ask you to answer that question. That's his decision to make with
For
what
sure.
his going to look like. But I'm anticipating him leaving. You've already announced that you're moving on. For you two to go out there and put your futures on the line, because it's a violent game. Football is a violent game. And this is just a personal thing. It bugs me when people talk about, well, injuries. Well, guess what? You're hitting each other at full speed. Guess what? Injuries happen in this sport, folks. It's just it's part of the calculus. But for you and Blake to go out there, in many ways, as you mentioned, you wanted to do right by your teammates and do right, I feel like, by the coaches, the administrators, and also the fans. Am I right in that assessment?
Oh yeah, for sure. It's kind of funny. I'm not bashing on any of the guys that did opt out and whatnot, but they're all great dudes and I love them and they're my brothers and whatnot. But me and Blake kind of signed a pact that hey, we're gonna finish this thing out together. And so it was like, hey, no, we're not gonna leave each other hanging to dry. So it was like, hey, let's go in. Sure, we don't know who our quarterback's gonna be. Sure, we're down a few other guys on defense or in some of our skill positions, but hey, let's go out there, let's have some fun, and let's do what we do, and let's see what happens in the end. And I'm grateful for him and the relationship we have with each other, and he's one dude that I'll forever be close to, and it's because of things like this. I feel like just playing for each other, having fun, going out there and balling out no matter the circumstance. So.
Obviously, you are going to be moving on now. So what, I guess, as you leave the BYU football program, where do you feel the program has, I guess, made the most strides in your time there? Because you're a guy who signed in the 2016 recruiting class. Now, you didn't enroll them because you went on a mission. Then you came home and have played the last, is it 5 years now that you've played for BYU? So in that time, in your time playing for BYU, where do you think the program has made the most strides?
No, I think there's been a lot, of different things that BYU's improved on. I think one of the main things is just trying to find an identity. Mm-hmm. I think we've done one in understanding who we are, kind of where we came from, and what the plan is and what we can do. And so I think that's one thing that BYU has done a good job in creating, is just kind of what brand of football are you going to play when you're on that field. So
do you feel like BYU is in a position, you feel like, as they go into the Big 12 era here, where they can go in and succeed at least early on?
Yeah, for sure. I think they will continue to do well. And the changes that have been made, I think were necessary and they were good. And being able to be around, the couple coaches that they did bring in, they're great dudes and bring great energy. And you can see, especially on the other side of the ball, you can see the difference that they're making already. And so it will be cool to watch what happens there. So.
All right, I got a few more questions I'm going to pepper you with as we close out today's show. But before we do that, I do need to talk about our friends over at UCCU. They're offering a 15-month savings certificate right now with an incredibly high APY of 4.00%. The best part is, during that 15-month period, you can jump up to an even higher rate of return anytime during the life of your certificate. All of us know that interest rates and inflation are both on the rise. That's why UCCU is here with that savings certificate to help you guys take advantage of this rise, because that APY of 4.00% blows the water out of your traditional savings accounts, money markets account. So give it a shot, my friends. The savings certificate, you make one deposit, then let your money grow and grow and grow with that fixed rate of return that's much higher, like I mentioned, than a savings account or a money market account. Most of them, it's triple, if not higher than that in terms of the overall return. The best part is you can do this for as little as $500, making it an awesome opportunity for every type of saver, both big and small. The best part is you can jump it up one time during that 15-month period if rates continue to rise and take advantage of a higher rate of return. All you got to do to start this is go to UCCU. Stop by any UCCU branch, give them a call, or go online to uccu.com. Get started now. But remember, it's only for a limited time, so take advantage now. That way your savings can start working harder and earn you more. Once again, visit uccu.com to learn more today or get started on that savings certificate. That's UCCU. Love where you bank. Thank you once again for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. Wrapping things up here with Clark Barrington. And Clark, I mentioned, I guess I asked you before we talked about UCCU there. I asked you about what you feel like BYU, the strides they have made. Now, obviously, they're going into the Big 12. Where do you feel like BYU is still currently deficient or where they need improvement as they make this jump to the Power 5?
There's always spots to continue to improve and get better, and I just feel like there probably are a few spots that BYU can continue to improve, but I don't know any off the top of my head really right now.
Now, I'm gonna lob one at you. They whacked the top two strength coaches. Do you feel like that was a necessary deal to get this program to be, I guess, a better program?
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting situation. I love those guys that were in there, Newton and Justin, and they had been here since the beginning with me, and it's been a grind, and I had to earn their respect and all that, and we got to be pretty close. And so, I love those guys and the relationships I have with them. But I think, in the direction that BYU wants to move for sure, those changes needed to come, and they needed to happen. And I think, the things that they have working in there will continue to improve that place. So.
There were a lot of, I guess the easiest way to say it, rumors and or reports of locker room issues, team camaraderie, team culture issues this year for BYU. And you talked about the fact that maybe you felt like you got a little too comfortable in the spot you were at BYU, and that's kind of why you decided to move on here. How can you address those? Was this a team that was fractured in a way that needed to have some changes to get it back on track, hopefully?
There's always going to be, kind of the bad apples, in the bunch. And so I think for the most part, people's mindsets and the goals and everything were in line. I think there were just a few people that maybe spoke out or posted something or did those things that just kind of stirred up, the emotions of people on the outside that didn't really fully understand what was going on inside and in the BYU football family. And so I think it can be easily misinterpreted and misunderstood. And that was kind of a big focus and things as we were kind of fighting through some of those deals, is that let's just continue to go throughout this thing together as brothers, and we know what's really going on, and the people that are bought in are going to bought in, and that's all we need to really do what we want to do this season. So.
Now, I know you didn't play directly for Elisa Tuiaki, Ed Lamb, Kevin Clune, or Preston Hadley, but they have since moved on from their positions. They were either resigned of their own volition or let go. Regardless of whatever happened, they're no longer on the staff. Do you feel like this season that it became apparent that there needed to be changes on the coaching staff? Did you feel like something needed to be shaken up there?
For sure.
Why?
I don't know. it's I feel like you could kind of just see it, I guess. Kind of what I was kind of talking about, maybe just for myself, I was getting too comfortable. I think, some of the coaches were probably getting a little too comfortable with the things they were doing, and then it made some guys complacent, and I think you could see that as things were going on, and so I think change needed to happen to hold people accountable, and that will continue to help the program. So.
All right. So now as you exit BYU and go on to your next adventure, wherever that may lead, we'll obviously be tracking that. But if you were to have a guy come to you right now, whether it's a freshman coming into this program, signing day coming up tomorrow as we record this podcast, if you were to have a guy come to you, whether it's a junior college transfer, a grad transfer like yourself, just I guess a regular transfer, coming into BYU, what would your pitch to them be as a guy, as you're exiting the program? What would your pitch to them be about saying, you know what, this is a place you want to play?
Yeah, I would just say make sure it fits who you are. You know what I mean? I hate to see, kids come here and then leave, for certain reasons super early on, because they weren't either fully bought into things that were needed to be done, or they didn't truly understand, what they were getting themselves into, especially with some of the honor code and whatnot, or the standards, that is set by the church, some of the things that might be different or new to some of the guys. I would just say, make sure that the coaches are people you want to be around, and the players are people you want to be around, and that those relationships will last, a lifetime. And so you want those things to be good and go the way you want them to go. And so I would just say, for me, BYU has been, a great experience. It's been awesome to be able to create those relationships with a lot of the coaches and all of the players, and I love all of them, and I'm grateful for what BYU has given me, a degree and my wife and everything else. And so, it's blessed me a ton. And so I think just understanding what your reasons are and what's important to you, and then weighing those important factors and choosing what's best for that person. So.
All right. So Clark, last thing for me, is there anything else you feel like you need to get out there, whether it's a message to the fans, anything else about the program you feel like you need to speak out on? I'm opening the floor to you. Fire away.
Okay. There's not a ton. It's just that, I'm just grateful for the opportunity, to play at BYU. Grateful for the fans and the support. Yeah, it's just made me who I am today. And so I'm just grateful for that stuff, and we'll see what happens in the next coming weeks. But I'll forever be a Cougar, and that'll be part of me. So I'm just grateful.
Well, you got the piece of paper that proves that, because you have your degree in hand, obviously. So, like I said, we'll be rooting you on wherever you end up. Don't be a stranger. We may bring you back on when you ultimately make that decision. We'll talk about why, whether it's Baylor or whatever other university it might be. We'll catch up with you then. But I cannot thank you enough for doing everything you did this season. I think I speak for all Cougar fans, and frankly, thank you, because a lot of guys, like you mentioned, there are guys that opted out of playing in that bowl game, and you went out there and played because you felt like that was the right thing to do. So I guess I'm speaking for Cougar Nation and saying, hey, thank you for doing that. But thank you for joining me all season long. Thank you for joining the podcast. And like I said, we're rooting on Clark Barrington wherever he ends up.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. That is going to do it for this edition of the Clark Barrington Show. A huge thank you to Clark, as always. Hopefully that answered some of y'all's questions out there in Cougar Nation about where things stand with him. But, of course, like I mentioned, we'll have Clark back on once he makes his ultimate decision where he's going to play next. A huge thank you to all of you once again for tuning in, whether it's via YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. It's always good to be with you guys every single day. As mentioned, this is our regular Wednesday edition of the podcast. I'm going to record an edition as soon as I can on Wednesday to talk about all the signings with the early signing period opening up. We'll react to all the guys that have come in with their signatures and national letters of intent. We'll talk about all that. But thank you once again for making us your first listen of the day. Hope you guys are all doing well. Now go make your second listen. Our friends over at the Locked On Big 12 podcast. It's a great way to get caught up on the overarching themes of what BYU's new conference home is going to look like. Josh Neighbors has got you covered on that front every single day, wherever you get your podcast, and also on YouTube. So once again, for Clark, I'm Jake. Have a great rest of your day whenever you hear and or watch this. This has been the Locked On Cougars podcast. See ya.